Greetings to the NoDQ galaxy out there, and welcome to NoDQ video here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRift NoDQ. It is NoDQ.com's 20-year anniversary. 2 meetups are now scheduled. The first one will be on the East Coast, well, sort of. It's more the Midwest, but it's the eastern half of the United States. Chicago, Money in the Bank weekend. Check out the link in the description box to come join us for the NoDQ.com meetup prior to the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Also, there will be a second meetup in Los Angeles, California, the day of Survivor Series this November. That also is in the description box, a link to that event. With that being said, let's get down to your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift. First one today comes from John. What are your thoughts on the 50-man Royal Rumble, and do you think it will make it to the network? I did briefly talk about this on NoDQ Live. I understand WWE doing this match. This is a really big deal. From a business perspective, WWE is trying to build a relationship with a very wealthy country in Saudi Arabia, and WWE is trying to expand into that market. They're running a 60,000 seat stadium, so they need to do something significant, and somebody decided, let's do a Royal Rumble, make it the biggest Royal Rumble of all time, 50 men. If this is a one-time thing, then I really don't see a real problem with it. If WWE starts doing more and more Royal Rumbles that aren't in January, then I think that it will water down and hurt the legacy of the Royal Rumble as a once-a-year event. It will lose its aura that it has if you keep doing it more and more. If it's a one-time thing, fine. 50 men, that could be a bit overkill, but perhaps WWE will do 1-minute intervals so the match goes faster. It's basically a showcase for the fans there in Saudi Arabia, and they're just going to be happy to see all the big stars. The question is, will this be on the network? WWE is already promoting this on television, which makes me think that it will be on the network, and considering it is a 50-man Royal Rumble, this makes it more than just your average house show. This is a really big deal. So I feel personally that WWE should put this on the network. They're going to be filming it, no doubt, for posterity purposes. So why not put it on the network? I think they should. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that they will, more than likely. Then again, I thought Starrcade was going to be on the network and it wasn't. But that's more of a house show, a traditional house show. This is a different story. This one comes from Sean T. Flick. Do you think the house shows in Saudi Arabia and Australia are being held to test the waters on potentially holding WrestleMania outside the United States? Good question. I think as it pertains to the Saudi Arabia show, I think that's, like I said, more about WWE building a relationship with that country and the Middle East region. With the Australian show, that very well could be testing the waters to see what kind of crowd WWE can draw at that stadium. That also might end up being a network special. I know WWE did a few big events in Australia. One of those events is on the WWE network. I think it was the Global Warming Show, something like that was the title. I could see WWE doing this as an experiment, no doubt, and they might as well put it on the network as well and see what kind of viewership it gets. And if it's a big success, a big moneymaker, and people in the United States tune in to watch it live, then I could see WWE perhaps doing more shows overseas and making bigger and bigger events take place outside of the United States. So yeah, you could see it as a bit of an experiment. If it does really well, then that could lead to more to come and maybe eventually a major pay-per-view overseas in another part of the world where people in the United States would have to either watch on tape delay or watch it live at some weird time. It's all very tricky because the United States is still WWE's core audience. This next one comes from It's the Costanza. Well, Aaron, due to Rey Mysterio's injury, for God's sakes, I guess he is most likely involved in SummerSlam instead? Not necessarily. Now keep in mind this information is always changing, but as of this video, the latest on Rey Mysterio is that it's believed his injury is a partial bicep tear rather than a full tear. He might not be able to make WrestleMania, but WWE is apparently still going to discuss a deal with him and negotiate. We could see Rey Mysterio sometime within the next couple months in WWE. We might see him sooner than SummerSlam. I think there's still a realistic possibility that we will see him back before SummerSlam. Maybe as soon as Money in the Bank in June. Again, cheap plug, NoDQ's 20-year anniversary in Chicago. Check out the link in the description box. This one comes from Mr. Yuck. My last question answered was if Apollo Crews was in a slow push of sorts. Got to get the Crews out. With wins by Titus Worldwide, what do you think? How watered down are tag divisions lately compared to the past, and how would you remedy such? That's more than one question there, Mr. Yuck, but I will go ahead and answer this the best to my ability. Regarding Titus, their push is pretty much over. They had their shot at the titles, and it was essentially filler. It was just something for the Bar to do until WrestleMania and the WrestleMania build beginning. That's all it was. They were just a team to be fed to the Bar. State of the tag team division, I actually think it's pretty good right now. The Bar, I feel they're very credible as tag team champions. I feel the Usos have a lot of credibility right now, and they're doing really well for themselves. I've said this before, I'll say it again. In my opinion, and I know some people disagree with me on this, I think there should be one set of tag team champions. I think that that would help the division, having one set of champions. They appear on both shows. They get more TV time, which means more money. So there's more incentive to be the tag team champions. There's more to fight for. That's why I like it. And then maybe have the US title and the IC title as brand exclusive titles. That's how I would do it. That's the number one thing I would do to change the tag team division right now. Other than that, I feel like it's in pretty good shape right now. You have the Bludgeon Brothers on SmackDown. They're gaining momentum. You have the New Day, even though I feel they're stale. They're still a reliable act for WWE. On Raw, it's a little bit weaker. The Revival, they're going nowhere right now. Anderson and Gallows, same thing. So one thing you can do is build up the credibility of these tag teams. Is it too late for the Revival? Perhaps, but maybe with a little bit of a reboot for those guys. And I hate to say that since they just came back from them both having injuries. They should have had a reboot when they came back. Maybe changing up their characters a little bit. You know, if something's not working, change it up, you know. Harper and Rowan, they got a makeover, and so far it's working out for them. So perhaps some repackaging for some of these other teams will help. Anderson and Gallows, maybe the ball was dropped with them since they didn't come in right away as dominant forces. Maybe you could hit the reset button with them. Just try something different. The whole nerds thing, to me, isn't going to go very far for those guys. They're going to need to do something else. This one comes from Cindy. Hey, Aaron, now that The Miz and Asuka have their next mixed match opponents as Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss, do you think WWE will have Miz or Asuka win by a roll-up or have Asuka to submit Alexa? Will this match be a continuing storyline between Alexa and Asuka leading up to WrestleMania 34? Interesting question, an interesting scenario that WWE has right now. My pick was Asuka and The Miz to win, but how will Braun Strowman not win this tournament? Alexa, yeah, I could see her. If it is the direction, I could see Asuka tapping out Alexa Bliss, and that could perhaps set up WrestleMania. That would be an easy way to do it, but if the plan is for Asuka to face Charlotte, then it really doesn't make a lot of sense. It just kills off the Raw Women's Champion. So I'm really curious. This match is going to be interesting. I could see some sort of a DQ where Braun Strowman gets out of control and gets his team disqualified, and that's WWE's out. It's going to be really interesting because if Asuka loses, like I said before, doesn't that mean her streak ends? But at the same time, you don't want Braun Strowman losing some mixed match challenge, which isn't even a big deal of a match. I guess maybe the idea is not that many people are watching it, so nobody will really pay attention. But still, it's a really interesting match, and I'm curious as to how WWE will get themselves out of this one. I could very well see Strowman getting himself disqualified, or, like you mentioned, if it is going to be Asuka and Alexa Bliss at WrestleMania, then yeah, have Alexa Bliss tap out to Asuka, and bam, Asuka is set. She beat the champion, and you can use that to set up WrestleMania. This one comes from Cruz. We now have Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle versus Triple H and Stephanie, a match by Kurt that Kurt made. In kayfabe, can't Stephanie just say no? She's Kurt's boss. You're putting too much logic and thought into this. I found that to be ridiculous. That was one of the worst aspects of that segment on Raw, where Kurt Angle said he could book Triple H and Stephanie in matches. He's the GM, but Stephanie is the commissioner. She's the one that made Kurt Angle the general manager. Stephanie has power over Kurt Angle. So couldn't she just veto this? The whole thing is really silly if you ask me. I think there should have been some sort of storyline where Stephanie is angry and she says, you know what? I'm not afraid of you guys. Let's do it, WrestleMania. You're on. I'm not going to back down. Something like that. Just so it makes a little bit more sense. But again, it's wrestling, and WWE expects you to check your brain at the door with some of these storylines, or maybe most of these storylines. And you just got to go along and go with the flow when it comes to this storyline. I mean, overall, I thought it was a good segment. It had its awkward moments, and that was no doubt one of them. But the characters are strong enough and the performances are strong enough that you tend to overlook the things that really don't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it. This one comes from a good friend of mine, Mr. Stephen Osborne. Great Words with Friends player, by the way. Hey, Aaron, I assume most great wrestlers want to make it to WWE, but what if they already did? Would it be better to have all the greats in one international company, or would it be better for the business to leave some for the indie scene? What wrestling needs is competition. You need more than one company dominating, and if one company has all the talent, then it's basically a monopoly. And the thing is, too, it's hard to really break out when the roster is so crowded, and that's how WWE has been for many years now. There's so few spots and so much competition, and WWE can basically sign anybody they want. WWE can get any top-tier talent in the world if they want that person bad enough. WWE has control of everything. And it's not good when you have all these guys on one show. When you have guys split up, they have more opportunities to shine and more opportunities to succeed. Look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. Would that character have ever had a chance with Hulk Hogan around, and Randy Savage, and Kevin Nash, and Bret Hart even? Once Bret Hart left and Shawn Michaels left, Steve Austin had the spotlight and could be the flagship of the company. But with all those other guys there and all that competition, it's hard to really break out and reach the top of the mountain when it's so crowded. You have all these guys fighting for the spot. Sometimes it can be a good thing, but sometimes politics can play a role, and it can prevent some guys from really getting that opportunity, and sometimes less is more. So it just depends on how you look at it, but I think generally it's better to have guys spread out in different companies and have rival companies with their own cast of superstars. This one comes from Alfredo. Hey bro, hope you respond to this one. What do you think was the reason for WWE never giving us Steve Austin versus Triple H at WrestleMania? I think it was timing more than anything else, and with all due respect to Triple H, when WWE considers the matches for WrestleMania, WWE is thinking of the biggest match possible. WrestleMania 17, for instance. Yeah, I think it would have made more sense for Steve Austin and Triple H, considering the whole Rikishi storyline and Triple H putting Rikishi to it, that you would set something up for WrestleMania. But WWE was thinking, we're trying to sell out a 70,000 seat arena. What's the biggest match we can do? And the answer to that was Steve Austin versus The Rock. That was the biggest marquee match WWE could do. So that's what they went with. Timing-wise, it just didn't work out. Maybe it would have happened at WrestleMania 16 if Austin had not gotten hurt. Maybe not. Maybe it would have been Rock and Triple H or a triple threat, or maybe they still would have done a fatal four-way with Austin and Big Show's role. Who knows what would have happened? There's several factors. Timing is everything. Sometimes guys get injured. Sometimes a guy's just not hot at the right time. And for whatever reason, Steve Austin and Triple H, the stars were just not aligned for that match to happen at WrestleMania. And sometimes there's nothing you can really do about it. It's just timing. Got this one from Smirtaza. Hey Aaron, what was the best feud of Seth Rollins as a babyface? None. In my opinion, his best feud as a babyface was against Triple H. Your thoughts? And thank you for watching since 2015. I mean, I guess by default, it was the feud with Triple H, but like I've said before, Seth Rollins as a babyface has been a big disappointment. I think had Jason Jordan not gotten injured, the feud would have really, I think, been Seth Rollins' first really solid program as a babyface since he turned back in 2016 when he came back from injury, or a little bit after he came back from injury. At this point, maybe it'll be The Miz. I think Miz and Rollins, if this feud goes on past WrestleMania, I mean, Miz is a great heel. Miz is arguably the best heel in WWE, so if anybody could make Rollins a great babyface, it would be Seth Rollins. But yeah, I cannot really think of any great feuds where Seth Rollins was this strong babyface and he had a strong heel to work with. Again, I guess Triple H by default, but I'm still not a huge fan of how that storyline played out. This one comes from Kirk. If PG, more like G sometimes, was dropped, you were WWE's lead writer, what are 2 or 3 storyline ideas you would write to get people interested again? Thanks. As always, keep up the great work. Well, thank you for that. First of all, you don't need to have TV-14 or have that kind of rating to write a good story. So I would find out a way to write a compelling storyline without having to be overly edgy. You can be edgy in some ways. Look at Raw. The B word was thrown around several times. BS was said. It was censored, but it was still said. WWE will push the envelope a little bit, especially around WrestleMania season. They just don't do it excessively like they did during the Attitude Era. So what would I do? Again, I don't really have any specific idea or storyline. It's a lot tougher than it seems to come up with a really compelling storyline. I guess if I put enough thought into it, I could come up with some ideas, some storylines. what I would like to see is just something different, something that hasn't been done before, and that's tough. It's tough to do something that has not been thought of yet. That takes a lot of creativity, and I'm probably not enough of a creative person to come up with something. But what I would do, ideally, is have more than 2 or 3 storylines where every character has something going on. Much like the Attitude Era, each character has their own storyline, and you have a plan for the storyline. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you have backup plans. If somebody gets hurt, you're going to take the storyline in this direction. You think things out, and you put more thought into the story writing process. And I feel like today, you have, 20 writers in WWE, and they still cannot think of really compelling long-term storylines. So you need maybe a smaller crew, maybe 3 or 4 people, and these people put some time and effort into making long-term plans and alternative routes to go depending on fan reaction. You know, if the fans react poorly to this, we can do this instead. And you map it out. You plan it out, and I think it would make for more interesting shows in the long run, and you can throw your little twists and turns and make the shows more interesting. Have some swerves, but have swerves that make sense. So really, that's all I can say. It's just a basic formula of what to do rather than just say specifically this storyline's going to have this guy do this thing. Just the basic structure of planning out long-term, having some backup plans, having some swerves in place to throw people off, but in the end, everything makes sense. That would be ideal. But unfortunately, WWE's attitude is, you know what, it's just wrestling. People just want to chant things and watch guys do moves, and they don't even care about pyro anymore, so we're just going to stick to our formula that we've been doing for 20 plus years, and that's the way it is. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ Video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I was definitely very vocal with some of my opinions today. Check out the meetup pages, like I said, June Money in the Bank Chicago, and then November Survivor Series in Los Angeles. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for Fastlane coverage, and I will see you guys next time.